Air marshals are being ordered to the Mexican border. That's the administration's latest plan to deal with a 250% spike in illegal immigration. And the crisis at the southern border is only expected to get worse.
Well, soon the administration will lose the authority to expel migrants under a COVID restriction known as Title 42. And the plan to use air marshals to alleviate the crisis is generating a big backlash. Tara Mergener explains.
After a long court battle, Title 42 is set to expire on December 21st. President Biden's plan is set to include more resources, technology, and enforcement to help deal with the millions who continue to pour over the southern border.
El Paso is among the border communities seeing an unprecedented jump in illegal immigration, with numbers up more than 250% from a year ago.
750 migrants have been released out onto the streets.
Some are simply left to wander the city.
Title 42 and this expulsion to Mexico policy hasn't worked. What we've seen is people who get sent back to Mexico, there's nothing to do in Mexico but try to recross the border again.
Even so, the expectation is that loss of this tool will likely lead to even greater numbers crossing the southern border. So the administration is considering drastic measures, including barring some asylum seekers and more prosecutions of illegal border crossers. Another option could expand legal avenues for migrants and asylum seekers to enter the U.S. Although that choice comes as another crisis appears ready for takeoff. Last month, the administration ordered that air marshals would face indefinite deployment to the border to help with migrant needs, like meals and transportation to hospitals. The Air Marshal National Council says its officers are ready to risk termination and refuse that order.
The message is clearly, let's stop another 9/11. We are extremely concerned.
Because it would mean 99% of commercial flights would have no federal protection.
Air marshals are the first, sort of federal employees to actually stand up to the Biden administration and say, no, we have a law enforcement job we need to do, especially as the American public is traveling on planes for the holiday.
All this as House Republicans gear up for investigations into the administration's handling of the border and a potential impeachment inquiry into Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. And President Biden is under scrutiny for not visiting the border.
Is he going to?
So look, he's been there. He's been to the border
since 2008.
And lawmakers from both sides say they are still concerned, writing a letter to Mayorkas, who insists the border is under control. Gordon?
Well, Tara, let's talk about the air marshals. The head of the Air Marshal Union warning of another 9/11 if these air marshals are sent to the border. It just doesn't make any sense that you would actually announce it, that the planes are going to be flying without air marshals. So what's the Biden administration's response?
So far, Gordon, as far as we know, there hasn't been one. Sonia Labasco, she is the head of the Air Marshals Union. She has written 2 letters to President Biden. The second one just after this weekend when there were incidents aboard aircraft, level 3 and 4 threats. 4 being somebody tried to breach the cockpit, and 3, there were life-threatening incidents. Again, only 1% of the aircraft now have U.S. Marshals on them. So she is obviously very concerned. She's concerned we're going to repeat history. And she also says the Marshals, this is not about not necessarily wanting to go to the border and do their part, but they feel very conflicted. Why should they be changing dirty diapers, they say, and being a taxi service to migrants when Americans are at risk now aboard aircraft, especially as the holidays approach, Gordon?
Well, tell us what's happening with the Border Patrol agents that are tasked by law with this. And so what's going on with them? Are they being overwhelmed every day?
Yeah, absolutely. And this has been said for years now. You can only imagine when you show up for work every day and the problem you tried to tackle yesterday only gets worse when you show up the next day, day after day. Sadly, there is apparently a suicide epidemic. That's what it's being called. Since the beginning of the year, 14 agents or staff have committed suicide. 3 just last month. In fact, Gordon, when we were on the border most recently in September, there was an incident while we were there. So it's a growing problem. Republicans have put forth a measure where they're trying to get more mental health resources for the staff that's deployed to the border. And it's not just actually Border Patrol agents either. The Texas National Guard, there were several incidents last year since Governor Abbott started Operation Lone Star, trying to get the border under control in Texas as best he could. So this is a growing problem. In fact, Border Patrol, by the way, now has a suicidologist. Very sad, Gordon.
Well, Tara, tell us what does a Border Patrol agent see on a day-to-day basis? How bad are the conditions for these immigrants?
Yeah, well, conditions for the immigrants are not great either because they have traveled such a long journey. So they get there, they've paid smugglers to get over, they've been walking or on the road for days, and then they've got to cross that dangerous river. In the process, a lot of them die. Percentage-wise, not a ton in comparison to the millions that are coming over, but it is significant. So Border Patrol agents are also seeing death nearly every day now. So you know that's got to take its toll. But I always say that you can't really understand what the border looks like unless you see it for yourself. We can show you pictures, we can give you a snapshot of what's happening, but you really can't understand. It's literally migrants coming over every second of every day at every hour. It's never stops. So the stress of trying to control this all, and then add to the stress to the Border Patrol agents, most of the migrants that they're rounding up and processing only get released into society. So you never get a handle on the problem.
Well, Tara, thanks for the report. And I've got to tell the way I see it, it's because of the policies of the current administration. They've announced to the world that we're not going to enforce our border. There's a new president in town, and he wants to change the laws and the enforcement of the laws. And as a result, you're seeing a 250% increase in migration. What I thought was happening in the first year, I thought there was going to be a wave and then it would go. No, it's wave after wave after wave after wave. It's only increasing. And the longer the administration turns a blind eye to it and is trying to pretend this really isn't happening, it's a humanitarian crisis of monumental proportions. It's straining all the current systems that were in place for it. He needs to say, well, no, we're not going to have an open border anymore, and send that message around the world so these people who are hoping to come here, hoping for a better life, dreaming of a better life in the United States, understand, well, you've got to go through the proper channels. You can't just cross a river and have that dream somehow come true.